It's time for Over There with Mirella Rastorfer. Mirella is our European correspondent. She joins us weekly. She's over there in Switzerland, I think. And yes, she is in Switzerland, not in Spain, as I keep teasing her. Not. I'm sorry, I'm sort of stuck on the Spain thing. She joins us weekly, and what's going on in, shall we say, your neck of the world?
Hi, Jill. Yes, still in Switzerland, and for a while, because as I mentioned last week, when I said that probably in Europe the societies are going to have this stop and go kind of system, I could not have been more right, unfortunately, because cases are also rising in Europe, and different part of Europe, different countries are taking again some quite strict measures. So I would just name a few countries that are a little bit worried right now. Switzerland goes from 60 cases to 150 daily, so there is a bit of room between the numbers, but it is still, for a small country, something that has to be looked at carefully, considering that people are becoming, in Switzerland, like in all the other parts of the world, are getting really tired of not going out, of not going to parties, of not going to restaurants, of not having the social life that they were used to. And one can see that with the increase of parties, and with parties I don't necessarily mean hundreds of people, I also mean family barbecues with a couple of friends, or student meeting also, and having an evening out. With the increase of all these gatherings, small and big, the numbers are definitely increasing. That can be seen also very much in Germany. The German government is also on alert. It is not a catastrophe right now. It is still under control. But they are also dealing with an increase of unhappiness from the population who wants to travel, who wants to meet and have a regular social life. Greece, even though the numbers are still very good, are also increasing the measures, for example, by requesting mandatory masks in the shops. Spain, the famous Spain that you mentioned before, Jill. As we know, Spain was a country very, very badly hit at the beginning of the pandemic, and now they are, of course, still traumatized and would like to avoid any situation like this, and therefore a city like Madrid, for example, is also requesting mandatory masks. Bars, for example, have to close at 1:00 in the morning. On restaurants, terraces, not even inside, but on terraces, not more than 10 people are allowed, which is a little bit of a weird rule, because I would suppose that it depends a little bit on the size of the terrace. But this limit of 10 people is also highly recommended in private houses, even among family members. Then in Brussels, in Antwerp, there is a night curfew back. Masks are also requested everywhere where the social distancing is not possible. And restaurants have to close at 11 o'clock already. Work from home is actually mandatory, except if it's not possible. So we can see that there are some tensions. Also, Germany announced, for example, a quarantine for people coming back from Spain. And considering that a lot of German people go to Spain to spend their holidays, it's a lot of quarantine. And the issue with this quarantine, the issues actually are mainly two. One is that it's very difficult to be sure that someone is going to respect that quarantine. And secondly, it is also a problem between an employee and its company, because the quarantine technically is usually not part of the holiday, and one has to see if it's still paid or unpaid, and it's a lot of things of that kind linked to quarantines have to be also clarified with the companies before going on holiday to high risk countries like Spain right now. Of course, Spain was very unhappy about that decision and is heavily protesting and considers that many places in Spain are as safe as any other place in Europe, and that this is some kind of an unfair treatment. So, that's the bottom line. People are traveling, people are going on holiday. I would say that even though one reads a lot in the papers that the airports are empty, with my own experience, I can tell you that the airport in Zurich on Sunday was absolutely full. Maybe not to the extent of a normal summer, but it was definitely not an empty airport. So I assume with that many people are still going on holiday these days, and that, of course, it does increase the spread of the virus, if we want it or not. That being said, if social distancing is respected, if people keep wearing masks and avoid being in big crowds, there is still a way to control the numbers everywhere.
Can I just interject and ask if
Yes.
most people that you are encountering are willing to do the social distancing, and where they might, because it definitely does seem as though once you get into bigger groups, there's more of a problem. But if you keep it limited, not is certainly not so much. Are you? Is it the same? Is it the same demographic there? Basically, is what I'm asking.
Absolutely, there is something. There is a generation question here. That's pretty clear. It's much easier for a family, for example, to keep social distancing because of the nature of their holiday. But when when you are younger and you are traveling with friends of yours and you are going in places like, as far as Marbella is concerned, for example, or other places that are per definition places where people like to be in crowds and have a good time, then I would assume that social distancing is almost impossible, and basically it's a decision that a person takes. I want to have fun, and whatever happens, happens. What is very unfortunate is that most of the time, this young generation will not be severely affected, in spite of all exceptions, while they will totally be able to bring that back to people that are less lucky from that point of view. So yes, there is a generational problem, and while everybody is tired of these COVID-19 restrictions, we can observe that the younger generations are rejecting all this restriction a little bit more than older people. But again, this is a little bit of a generalization, and there are many exceptions in all generations.
No, I think you're right, and it's not. I know, for example, here, when that group there was a group of people who went to the beach here, and they were young but absolutely conscientious. By this, you just
Yes.
it and when you're in a group, it's sort of, you do wear a mask. It's not as, but it's very difficult to, shall we say, party late into the night with masks on. That just tends to not happen, and one has to examine how realistic it is to, I don't want to say expect it, but anyway.
Absolutely, you're right, Jill. It really depends on the event that you are taking part of, and I have seen also a lot of young people. It would be unfair, really, to just put everything on one segment of our society. I saw a lot of people on terraces sitting, having a drink, but having a really 1 meter 50, 2 meters distance, and being basically careful. So I think there are exceptions everywhere, but obviously there is also a tendency that can be noticed, and parties and bars and clubs. We have had a lot of problems with our clubs here in Switzerland. Those are all places which, by definition, are not meant to highlight social distancing. It is actually just the opposite. So one would have to say it's a little bit when I was younger, and it was still allowed to smoke into airplanes. And there was always this big discussion. Smoking should be forbidden, and on the other side, the smokers were saying absolutely not. It is our freedom to be smoking, but at the end of the day, one could see that we did come to the conclusion that if someone smokes next to you, then you are going to be affected. So it's a little bit of we can compare that with a stretch to the virus by saying that by having a certain behavior, it's yes, it is the freedom of each one of us, but at the same time, we maybe by doing so take the freedom away from someone else.
Thank you very much, Mirella Rastorfer, over there.
My pleasure.